Hi, my name is Soile, and you're listening to Heartland, a fan podcast from a fan perspective. And we're here at the mid-season finale recap episode. 10 episodes behind us, still 5 to look forward to. I had sort of forgotten how this feels like having a mid-season finale and the crazy energy it brings. I would guess that this mid-season finale definitely left a lot of us shocked. But more on that soon. Let's just go through some of my quick thoughts before we go into our comments, and I'll comment more when we get there. I thought the episode was pretty good. I think there wasn't necessarily anything wrong with it, or well, perhaps few things that I was disappointed with, but it sort of felt like it gave us things that were kind of like slowly progressing into certain directions, and then nothing really happened. Like, I really wanted them to go even darker with the whole miracle girl imposter thing. But of course, this is a family show. But I fully expected when the scene with Amy looking at the pictures happened, Jolene to kind of step behind her and look at her with this like dark expression, and you wouldn't necessarily know that what she would do to Amy, and somehow she would be able to gaslit Lou into thinking that she's Amy or something like crazy like that. But of course, that's not Heartland like. But I just sort of felt like it was kind of like too quick what they did with Jolene. Like, okay, that's all it took for her to kind of turn things around for her. I don't know, just felt kind of underwhelming, I would say. And well, speaking of things that I didn't like, I was nervous about the whole Finn storyline. I mean, I think to some extent it ends here. And it really left a sour taste in my mouth because I just felt like that even though the Amy and Finn thing would not continue, they shouldn't do it in a way that would make Finn this character that breaks Amy's heart. If anything, more like a next step into Amy exploring what the future of her could look like. I mean, they could still do that because I feel like we still need to hear what Amy's sort of going through after all this before we can close that book. But, it's a very narrow window for them to still fix this. I'm not holding my breath, but, I'm still hoping that they don't do the cliche like, oh, he had a family there all along thing, because that's just cheap. And that's just such a cliche and so unfair. And I think it's sort of like, what's the point, especially with Amy going back to Hudson after the trip and even telling Jack like, oh, you're gonna like the outcome this trip had. It just doesn't really take the story anywhere. So I was hoping that even though we know that the Finn and Amy storyline wouldn't move along, it would leave Amy with something that she's learned about herself and her feelings, and what kind of relationship she might like to have in the future, possibly. So I think this is just sort of pointless if this is just how it's going to end. I did like that there was that scene with Amy and Lou at the motel, and Amy just kind of talking about her feelings around the whole issue, because it shows that she's actively kind of working on herself and moving forward at least in some ways, even though it's very like messy at this point. But I did appreciate it that, and I did like seeing Amy and Lou on a road trip because I've always enjoyed the sisterly scenes, and I also feel like it's good for Amy to get outside Hudson once in a while. And it's nice that we actually got to tag along. So, as for Tim's storyline in this episode, I'm not a fan of where this seems to be headed because we've had this like beautiful first half of the season where we've seen Tim mature and grow and learn from his mistakes, and now it just seems like he's maybe heading back to who he used to be. And I get that, it's a natural response for Tim to get upset and mad because Jack got hurt, and especially because Jack got hurt because of him. Sort of, well, it's because of Mike, but you know what I mean. It makes sense for him to get mad, but I just don't like that it just seems like it's back to violence and back to this guy who does things before he thinks them through. I know we still have 5 episodes for the finale, but I don't know, like they slowly build up this new Tim, and I don't want to let go of that. And I feel like them going back to him being rude and this like animalistic fighter is just like it will take away from the growth he has gone through. Like I know that of course in a way doesn't take away what's happened, but to me it just feels like going back to the beginning and then having to build up that trust in his character again. I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. But next episode, it seems like it definitely will test Tim's limits. When Caleb came to the screen and he started going off about this, like them having fumes at their house or something like that, I was like, okay, there's definitely something going on. Especially with the way he behaved even at the rodeo grounds with Sam. I mean, it's a one way to solve this whole thing with Cass and him, but it just sort of seems like, the same old, same old. I mean, I wasn't like the biggest fan of Cass, but it's still disappointing to think that the last time we saw her was when she announced her pregnancy and then she just disappeared. I mean, we've heard some things with her. They've sort of had to diminish her character into this busy vet and mother and just sort of taken away all the little things that they were able to put into the character after her introduction to the show. And, I understand that Caitlin probably feels like she wants to move on and seems like she's doing well for herself. So I'm not against that in any way. I just feel like, I don't know, I just always sort of hope that they would have these like better bookends to characters who leave the show, because then at least we would feel a little bit more satisfied with the way things went. Whereas this is just sort of like, oh, well, she's gone. So let's just, move on. But hearing that Caleb and Kaz are getting divorced brought from this fear that they're somehow gonna end up putting Amy and Caleb back together, which is something I don't want to see because I just feel like they're okay as friends, but it's just sort of like I just don't see them fitting in any way as a couple. Back in season 2, they were both younger, but even then I wasn't a fan. But now it just sort of seems like Amy has matured, whereas Caleb hasn't done much maturing. And he's just this big man child, so it works as a comic relief, but I don't think it works as this like main lead character who's supposed to be in a relationship with this like character who has a very high morals and standards when it comes to doing things right. So I just don't think it'll fit, and I hope they don't go there because it's like the last thing I want. So yeah, I hope that that's not where they're going. I know some fans will be happy because they've been, trying to hint that maybe Amy and Caleb could be a couple, even when Caleb was still married to Cassandra, which was kind of like, obviously they need to do something with the Cassandra thing because people are starting to forget that he's married. So, yeah. As for the scene at the Dude Ranch where Caleb, Jack, and Peter are talking about Caleb's divorce, I was just sort of terrified with the way Caleb talked about the Cass situation. I understand that that's a natural response to some people, especially if they're the one that's not actively looking forward to the divorce. I was glad that Peter was there to offer some advice because he's been through this. And, I'm not the biggest fan of the guy, but he has been dealing with something like this, and it hasn't been the worst case scenario with him. So I was glad that he was there to give Caleb that advice because it sounded really alarming what Caleb was about to do, making his son hate his mother, which is like, it could have been worse. And I hope that Caleb actually takes that advice. Then the Katie stuff and the kids sort of sprinkled up there with her. It wasn't like a big thing, but I did think that it sort of offered this more lighter note to the episode. And I did enjoy seeing them camping out and her enthusiasm with writing and coming up with stories and just being a normal teenager. It's so nice to see that despite all this craziness happening around her, she's able to have pretty normal childhood and enjoy her friend and entertaining Lindy as well, and now Carson seems like. I thought it was a nice little plot line in the midst of everything else. As for the biggest twist of the episode, I did not see Jack getting hurt coming. I fully expected the ambulance taking away Tim after the rodeo thing, which would have been very predictable. And obviously we knew something was going to happen with Mike because the way they kept building it up in the episode. But then as soon as I saw that Jack kind of kept falling down to the chute, I was like, whoa, 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 what are you doing? No, 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 no. That's really bad. I didn't think they would actually go there. And I, major props to Michelle with the way they directed that because that was intense. I actually had to cover part of my face like this because it was violent the way the horse kept stomping on Jack, and it's just terrifying. Obviously, we thankfully know that Jack is going to be alive in the future because we've seen Sean on set, pictures and all that kind of stuff, unless, he's a ghost. But I seriously doubt that. So in a way, we don't have to worry about that. But at the same time, it's never nice to see these characters get hurt, even if it's not real. But it's just always there's only so many times they can get hurt before we're starting to be okay, when will be the last time? I'm not liking that they aligned the fight with Amy with Jack's accident. Obviously, there's going to be a scene with Amy going oh my gosh, we were fighting, and now if he dies, he'll never know that I actually, love him so much and all that kind of stuff. I can see that happening already without even knowing anything about the next episode. But I'm hoping that somehow this will make Jack realize that, anything can happen and life is short, and, Amy should be allowed to do whatever she wants, and maybe it's time for him to kind of slow down as well. Again, when something like this is happening with Jack, Lisa's not there. I mean, in a way, it's a good thing because she didn't have to see that happening. But in some twisted way, I was hoping she would be there because I know Jessica would have brought it in with her acting. And I'm hoping she's in the next episode because if she's not, like, that's just, you know, the craziest thing and another moment where she would be needed, where she isn't, and it doesn't make sense. So fingers crossed. Like, I'm not actually sure if she is in the next episode, but um, we'll see, I guess. As for kind of the last thought with this track thing, I feel like in some way where we've gotten like this great material with Tim, we've also sort of gotten this like crumpy Jack throughout the season. And I feel like the roles have been kind of reversed with Jack and Tim, Jack being kind of the bad guy and the grumpy one, and just like being kind of mean sometimes, even. Whereas Tim has been the one who's done all the growing and being there to support other characters. So it's interesting that it feels like the show sort of needs those both sides, but they can be reversed within characters. But it's been interesting to see because it really sort of makes you realize that Jack and Tim are two different sides of the coin, and that's why they work together so well, because they take turns being one thing and then the other. But overall, I don't really fully know how I feel about this episode yet, because there were some things that left me disappointed. This episode feels like a two-parter with episode 11. So to fully kind of give my judgment, I need to see episode 11 to really know better if I enjoyed this episode or not. Because like I said, it was kind of like it had a lot of potential, and obviously the whole Jack thing was like dramatic and exciting in some twisted, dark way. But the rest of the stuff, it was just like it left me unsatisfied. But they still have a chance to fix that. So we'll see what happens. But before we get there, there's going to be other podcast episodes. And obviously now your comments. So let's get into those. First, we have a comment from Demo Dan Costa, 85. Wow, the cliffhanger, didn't see that coming. I think a lot of people didn't see that coming. So yeah, me included, didn't see that one coming. Then a comment from Don Burrell. Great cliffhanger, but I really thought it would be Tim who got hurt. As has already been said, I am disappointed with the Amy and Finn storyline. I called it from the trailer, but it is a bit of a cop-out. The storyline ending deserved better, but who knows, maybe that would have been the arc anyway. It's so sad that Amy was so giddy about him, only to have the rug pulled from under her feet. I wonder if those were real tears from Amber at the memory of Robert. I just hope we don't get a told you so from Jack. I can't bear the thought of him gloating. Amy doesn't deserve it. The other storylines were good too. The rodeo and Mike sabotaging added tension. Again, the kid scenes were funny and cute. Great directing from Michelle. I totally agree that I hope we don't get that told you so from Jack, It just feels sort of adding to the injury of Amy just getting traumatized over and over again. Like, she's just slowly starting to feel happiness again, and then Jack is trying to take that away, and then this Finn mess is happening. She's obviously very disappointed and hurt, and then Jack getting into an accident, and then him going like, ha, told you so. I just feel like it's just really bad taste in so many levels. Then a comment from MC Loves Heartland. I really enjoyed this episode. Michelle did such a good job directing it. I love her directing so much, and this did not disappoint. The Miracle Girl imposter storyline was really interesting. It was different than I expected. What I expected was some girl doing it to steal the spotlight from Amy, or to just be mean and targeting Amy for something. Don't know if that makes sense, but the point is that what we got was entirely different from what I thought it would be. Jolene was just weirdly obsessed with Amy, so much so she wanted to be exactly like her. I think the root of it was kind of like when you see a celebrity online and then they inspire you. But this was a little out of hand. The pictures were kind of creepy. Amy handled it so well. She gave Jolene valuable advice she could use. Amy dealt with the situation with patience, grace, and love. I love the Amy and Lou road trip scenes. I enjoy seeing them having one-on-one time. The massaging bed scene was so funny. I laughed out loud at that. I agree with what a lot of people have said already, that they handled the Finn thing all wrong. I hope it's a misunderstanding and that they don't portray Finn as a cheater. Katie and Parker's storyline was cute. I like seeing them interact with Carson and Lindy. Screen time and social media references were woven in really well. Peter was so sweet, surprising Lou, but sadly it didn't go as he planned. I guess that's what happens when the only person you tell is Rick. I know they needed a way to write Cassandra out, but I wish it wasn't a divorce. Poor Caleb is dealing with his second divorce. I just want him to be happy in love. I was cringing when Tim was interviewing himself. I felt for the interviewer. That ending, it all happens so fast. I hope Mike is sent to jail because what he did is terrible. I wish we would have gotten less behind the scenes photos and videos though, because I would be feeling much more stressed and sad about this ending if I didn't see Sean on set after that episode was filmed. I can't wait to see what happens next. Yeah, I think Amy just goes to prove what her character is like. She really was the bigger person with Jolene. And that's the kind of character you want to have and to show the alternative way of dealing things. Like obviously with the way Lou was hoping to deal with thing and in a way they did because, Amy handed Jolene the cease and desist letter. But I think it's always interesting that they show different kinds of ways to deal these type of situations because there's just not this one way to deal with them. And I'm always excited when it's not something to do with violence. Yeah, I also love the bed scene because it was sort of unexpected, with Lou opening a can of soda or whatever it was, and then the bed just kind of going crazy. I think even if it was a really fast scene, it was just like something the episode needed to kind of lift up the spirit a little bit. Then a comment from Sharon. Not everything is as it seems was my take on this great episode. The Miracle Girl story was different, and Amy being Amy sees Jolene not as imposter, but someone who loves horses but doesn't have her own identity, which of course Amy helps her find it. Lou relaxing on the massage bed. I kept laughing through the episode until the end. I love seeing Amy and Lou spend time together. Wish we had this more often. Katie, I think, has found her purpose with writing. Just hoping Carson is big for his age, but then again, it is Heartland. Ages are flexible. The girl at the door, to me, seemed jealous of any female wanting to speak to Finn and deals with it maliciously. I don't think that they will leave Finn in a bad light. I did like how Lou spoke to Amy about her first time feeling something for someone since Ty. Poor Caleb. I guess this is the only way for the writers to write outcasts, but Peter gave Caleb some good advice. McCluskey was always going to come back and cause trouble for Tim. Only Jack being injured is going to mean that Tim is on the warpath for Mike. How will Amy and Lou handle Jack being injured? Amy will obviously feel guilty because of their argument, and Lou seeing Jack injured will bring up memories of Tim being hurt, which she witnessed when she was a teenager. Tim being the interviewer and interview was typical egotistical Tim. It was hilarious. Love the credit at the end. Not Mike. How do you write this on your resume? Having to wait until January 8th will be excruciating, but upon leaving that I am going to be the first time grandma has eased the anxiety. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all. Well, first of all, congratulations, first time grandma. I hope that this holiday season will be good for you and your family. And honestly, yeah, the age thing with Carson, the kid was cute. I'm sure he's a great actor, but I'm questioning the casting department on this one. Like, there were no younger kids available. Even the ethnicity just doesn't seem to match. I just don't know what they were thinking with that one. But it is what it is. When the episode ended, I was obviously a little bit shocked of what had happened with Jack. But then the credits started and I saw the not Mike and then some guy's name. And I was like, what? Wait, what? I just imagined this situation with this guy going like, oh yeah, I was in Heartland. I'm gonna be on this Sunday's episode, and someone will be like, "Oh yeah, like what kind of role? Like, what's your character's name?" And he's like, "Not Mike." And they're like, What do you mean? Like some other name or what do you mean?" And then like, I'm thought to be this guy, but I'm not him. So yeah, I don't know. That lightened the mood a lot of it after watching the episode. Then Sharon also added, Michelle once again has done a great job. The scene Tim standing amongst the crowd looking for Mike showed, in my opinion, a variety of emotions from Tim guilt, anger, anxiety, among others. Michelle sure knows how to bring out a range of emotions from Amber and Chris. Yeah, I fully agree with that. Then a comment from officially Prue or Brooks. Not sure how to say that. Sorry. The comment says, I have so many feels. I was mad about the Mike's character the most for hurting Tim, but in the long run, it affected Jack and Caleb, but mostly Tim. I hope they find him and he goes to jail. Then the whole thing with Jack getting hurt in the shoot. God, I hope they call Lisa. But I pray this is going to be like the heart attack all over again. The only difference this time is that they are married. Then there's Amy, seeing everything going on and automatically filled with sorrow because they had the argument about Finn thinking he was going to be just like Al. I was definitely happy to see Peter, but felt bad because he's surprised when horribly wrong. Then I'm not even going to start about the Famey storyline. You know how our group chat feels about them prolonging Robert's character. Writers, I'm truly mad about this. I love seeing Katie writing, and I hope we see more about the contest. But who knows? That the whole thing with the imposter was a different storyline for Heartland. I don't know how I truly feel about it yet. I mean, I could see this being a big factor for not only Jack's future, but Lisa's future as well. Like, obviously, Jack's not gonna get hurt every time she goes away, but I could just see her being like, no, I need to be closer to home in case something happens, which, makes sense, but at the same time, it's like, I hope she doesn't bind herself into the kitchen because her character is full of so much more potential than that they're currently using her for. So I'm sort of dreading what's gonna come out of this because it's gonna affect a lot of the characters in different ways. And while it could be a good thing, I don't know if I'm just pessimistic about this, but I just see it being the reason that they're going to use to pull Lisa back into the house, which in a way would be a good thing because then it means we get to see more of her. But at the same time, when you think of her character, it would be a sad in a way. Obviously she loves Jack so much, but she should have her own life as well. But it's going to be interesting to see if Jack will have some kind of permanent damage from this, like a head injury of some kind that'll affect his memory or speaking or the way he moves or something like that. So that could be interesting, but I just don't want that to kind of drag out Lisa's character because she's so much more than a caretaker for Jack. Then a comment from the story chemist. What a superbly directed episode from Michelle Morgan. The whiplash vibrating bed scene was epic. And then the crying laughing emoji. I hope this is not how the Finn storyline ends, because if it is, it's just the usual Jack's always right, with Amy apologizing to him like a little schoolgirl for not listening to the teacher. Please, can we have autonomy for a grown 30s woman? I hope that this is Finn's sister or his deceased best friend's sister slash wife and that nothing romantic is going on. I hope they don't do Amy dirty with the storyline. She didn't do anything wrong. Her grandfather started their tiff by refusing to be adult about it and giving her a chance to be human and make decisions of her own that doesn't warrant his approval. I thought Tim was going to be the one who somehow ended up in the hospital. I hope this isn't just some pointless cliffhanger for ratings. I hope they use this to its full potential, but 99% chance Jack's injuries will be resolved in one episode. Maybe two if we're lucky, but then it will be back to normal. Jack with no side effects or getting stamped by a horse repeatedly. Also likely Lisa will play a minimal part in Jack's recovery. We'll be lucky to see anything resembling her being at the forefront as Jack's wife, and also nothing of the repercussions it will have on her emotionally and mentally in the long run. I'm sure they'll brush Lisa's feelings aside as usual. Brilliantly directed action scene for the Jack shoot accident. Love your show. We'll see you in the new year. Enjoy your Christmas and greetings from the new year as well. Yeah, this whole paragraph about Jack, fully recovering and Lisa not being at the forefront is just like exactly like from my mind. And my biggest fear with this, like, oh, well, what are we gonna do with the mid-season finale? What would really shock the viewers? Let's injure Jack, but not for a long run, and definitely not show Lisa's emotional state because it's just too much. We can't have that. But that's exactly the stuff that we want, like something to come out of this, and especially to see more of what Lisa's going through. Like, just even thinking about it, it's just like that would be so good. I'm just so sure that they will not show that, which is such a wasted potential because these characters, Jack and Lisa, should have more than this like constant angst about, we're separate, but I miss you and I love you, but I'm crumpy. And it's like, give us something more because there's opportunity for something more. So why don't you take it? Because this is like exactly the kind of stuff that we would love to see. So I hope they use this opportunity well. But again, I'm pessimistic, so not holding my breath. Then a comment from Chris Tim Heartland. Michelle did an exceptional job acting and directing. Loved the episode. Loved the sisterly bonding with Lou and Amy. We don't see that too often. Lou on the vibrating bed was hilarious. I couldn't stop laughing. The other funny storyline I liked was Tim interviewing himself. We all know he likes to talk, and OMG, the confused look on the reporter's face was absolutely priceless. Even Jessica couldn't believe what she was hearing. I wasn't expecting Jack to get hurt, though. I thought it would be Tim or one of his students, and we all know Jack will be just fine. He is Father Time after all. Caleb getting a divorce doesn't surprise me. We haven't seen Cass for years, and they had to write her out somehow. Great advice from Peter, by the way. And to mention Peter, just how sweet was his gesture of spending a romantic night with Lou. Too bad we didn't get to see it, but Lou supporting Amy and finding the imposter was more important. I refuse to believe that the woman who opened the door for Amy is romantically involved with Finn. It's not how we got to know him. Him going back to take care of his friend's father was a noble thing to do, and noble people don't have a double life. It's not how they are supposed to end the Finn storyline. No way. I also hope that Katie will find her calling and become a writer or a storyteller. Her story was great, and Parker was more terrified than Lindy or Carson. Love your podcast, and I'm always looking forward to the next episode. Watching your podcast is how I start my Saturdays. You're doing a great job with it. Keep it up. Thank you. I will try. I know we don't know Finn that well, but I feel like they didn't build this character to be this cheater, heartbreaker character. He's not like that. He may have secrets when it comes to, him helping out his friend's father and all that, but I just don't feel like him being a cheater and going after Amy romantically, it doesn't fit what I thought his character would be like. Of course, I could be wrong, but I just the rest of the writing doesn't support that kind of stuff. So I'm not buying it, but it's just like interesting to see how they will end this, because if it's just like a cousin or something, like what would stop Amy from being like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. Obviously, it could be just that it's just not the right time, even if it would be the right person. But I don't know. There's still a lot left in the air, I would say. Then a comment from Bextu KH Queen. Another great episode. Michelle did a phenomenal job directing and acting in this episode. I really enjoyed the sister scenes. Lou teasing Amy about who she was texting, then Amy's excitement of putting the quarter in the massage bed. Lou's reaction was perfect. Then loved when Lou was so excited that there was a kiss. That was truly some great sister bonding time. We need more of this. I know the Finn story is not a favorite, but I believe they had already written him out before his passing. I believe the writers and producers were very thoughtful with the storyline. It's never easy breaking up, but it is a part of real life. The imposter storyline was great too. This happens in life, and I liked how Amy handled it and encouraged Jolene to be her own person. The cliffhanger was a shocker and so realistic. Seeing Amy's face in the ambulance was heartbreaking. It's going to be a long month waiting for episode 11. I'm really enjoying season 16 and Amy putting herself out there. She is doing a great job portraying what actually occurs being a widow. The excitement, butterflies, but then the guilt as well for trying to move forward. I was thinking that when the scene with her behind Finn's door was happening, seeing these new sides of Amy and something we've never seen before. Obviously she had her relationship with Ty, but she was in a very different phase in her life. So it was just like nice to see her characters sort of come alive in that way. But then it's kind of sad that it's now being taken away, and who knows what will happen with her character next. I'm hoping, like, I obviously love the storylines with the horses and it's all always very natural, but I would like to see Amy challenged in some ways. I'm hoping that that will not disappear, even if this Finn storyline will come to an end, because I think this character deserves more than just being this like horse whisperer, which might sound bad, but I hope you know what I mean. Then a comment from HL Horses. Wow, what an episode. That cliffhanger. I forgot how much I miss these mid-season cliffhangers. It's been too long. The opening drone shots again were so pretty. I also love seeing Amy doing a sort of clinic again. The imposter miracle girl was an interesting storyline, and I think I liked how it played out, but I also think I was expecting more. You could tell Jolene had star eyes for Amy and was young and inexperienced. Glad Amy was able to help her and give her advice. Also loved Lou and Amy going on a road trip, since we really don't see too many scenes with just them. Lou standing up for Amy with Jolene reminded me of season 1 when she got Spartan back. I also loved how Amy was able to talk to Lou about Finn, as it really made them feel like sisters. I'm also glad we got to hear more of Amy's feelings toward the whole situation. Amy continually texting him, her saying she has butterflies, and then how hopeful and excited she was at Finn's house was so cute. But this is where I'm not a fan. The writers implying that Finn is involved with someone else was not a good choice. They couldn't just have him leave to go back to family and that be it, so he can leave on a good note. I mean, I think this storyline is still a bit unresolved, so we might get more answers. Hopefully, who that woman was and was it all just a misunderstanding, but who knows. Otherwise, it makes Jack's over the top views look right, and I could see Amy going back to him and saying that he was when he wasn't. And we all thought even if Finn and Amy didn't end up together, this relationship would show she can move on and love again, but it won't if it ends badly. The rodeo storyline was just kind of there, but did have some good moments. I now know it was mostly for building up the cliffhanger. Mike sabotaging was kind of creepy. Also, Tim just interviewing himself was hilarious. Also, blasphemy. Tim said hell, and then the crying laughing emoji. I also appreciated seeing more of the rodeo grounds because I feel like we only ever see the ring itself. It was cute how Peter came to surprise Lou, but then got roped into babysitting. But Carson looks way too old. He should be 3 at the max and most likely younger, and his actor looked too old. I also kind of saw the divorce thing coming because they needed to address it somehow, and it looked like Caitlyn wasn't going to come back. So this is probably the best solution with the situation. It was also cute how Peter called Katie Kitty Cat. Throwback to when she was little. The Dude Ranch was so gorgeous as well. I did laugh when Peter tried to make a joke about Coast at the rodeo grounds and Caleb did not appreciate it. Now for the ending. OMG. I did not see it coming. I was convinced it was going to be Tim or one of his students, and then Heartland actually had a twist. I actually gasped out loud. The way Tim was calling out Jack's name and frantically trying to help him pulled at my heart. He was so worried, and then how he wanted to kill Mike and to defend Jack. I hope someone holds him back when Tim finds Mike. Finally, some funny moments were when the bed shook and then when Tim called Jack Father Time. Another age reference to Jack this season. I can't wait to see what happens, and too bad we have to wait a month. Also, just remembered, I forgot to put this, but Lisa better be in the next episode, otherwise that would be so dumb. I really have this like soft spot for those little moments like Peter calling Katie Kitty Cat and him trying to be funny with his dad jokes and Caleb being confused about them. Just those little moments that make the characters feel more real and have those throwbacks because those are the kind of things that happen in real life as well. Then a comment from Smoking Holsters. Not a review, just a comment. My writing quirk kicked in as soon as I saw the Hun Lady scene, so since we can't have another scene with Finn, so Hun Lady shows up at Heartland to tell Amy that she's sorry. She is Finn's dead friend's younger sister, and she and Finn used to date, and she'd like to be a couple again, but Finn is in love with this other blonde, so knowing exactly who Amy was when she came to the door, did what she did to get rid of Amy. How they would go from that point is beyond me, but it just makes them both victims of circumstance that just don't work out. Yeah, I would actually like something like this because then it's like everyone is kind of like in a difficult situation, and in a way, it might be better if nothing happens with anyone at that point. But then it leaves the door open for something possibly happening in the future. Like, obviously, it would not happen like this with Amy and Finn, but just keeping that door open in this fictional world. Then a comment from No Context Heartland. This was a good episode and Michelle did an amazing job directing. She has this touch that fits so well with Heartland, but also feels unique to her, and I love it. The Miracle Girl imposter story was interesting, but I kept rolling my eyes because in all their scenes they had Amy and Jolene wearing exactly the same colors. They also did a really good job of misdirecting us worrying about Tim when it ended up being Jack who got hurt. But he better be okay because WTF. Them doing this when they haven't let him and Amy make up, and when Lisa is away, and for Tim to likely feel it's his fault because of Mike is very hurtful to me. The reasoning for Cass not being around feels like a cop out because Caitlin isn't available. I wish that they would just explain her being gone in some other ways, but I did like the scene with Peter offering advice to Caleb about how to move forward as a parenting unit. I love getting to see Lou and Peter on my screen again, and even though they only had one actual scene this episode, it felt better to me than what they've explained away this season so far. Now, the Finn thing. I'm really upset about this, and I am hoping, though my hopes are low, that this is a misdirection. If this is the last information we get on Finn leaving after Robert's passing, it feels cruel. To leave a sour taste in everyone's mouth that he might be not a good guy is so awful to Robert's memory, and I feel like he and we deserve much better. I really hope that they bring that woman back to tie up loose ends, but I'm not holding my breath. I just hate that this is the way they've chosen to leave Robert's memory in canon. I agree with the whole Robert aspect of this. Like, I know we're talking about a fictional character when we talk about Finn, but I just feel like there's this strong connection to his actor, obviously, with what happened. I would hope that there would be somehow more delicate way to handle this because he deserves to be remembered as someone whose character was liked, well, as much as people can like him. Some people will never like Finn's character because, he's Ty's replacement or whatever. But I just feel like it would be the right thing to do to have his character just be this good guy, but the timing of all of this just not being the right thing. I also feel like this is sort of the beginning of Peter being back and having more scenes with Lou. I have a theory where this is headed, but we'll talk about that in a later episode. So I'm thinking that this whole Caleb thing was also a way to show that Peter is a good fit with Lou to make some of us believe that them being back together is a good thing. Now, obviously, I was fine with them being this co-parenting unit. I think that worked wonderfully. I'm still not convinced about them as a couple because I think there's still some things that they should deal with on screen. We'll see if this is sort of them fixing that whole aspect of this couple slowly but surely before the finale. But more on that later. Then a comment from Stephanie. Before I officially start my review, I feel the need to touch on this storyline and express my feelings about it. Afterwards, I'll share the rest of my thoughts on the episode. Are you kidding me? Seriously, writers, I honestly had one request. Actually, we all did. We literally begged you guys to do this one thing. Honor Robert's memory. They really did Finn dirty here. When Amy went to the door and the lady answered, proceed to say, Finn, hun, are you home? You've got to be joking. I really can't believe they went down that road. They're making Finn out to be a cheater, a bad man. I'm really pissed about this. They could have handled their goodbye final scene be episode 7, I think. It would have been the perfect way for them to part ways, and him still be a good, honorable man. They just had to create drama. I'm really angry right now. It feels like a punch to the gut. Now they're going to have Amy say to Jack, you were right, which is the exact opposite of what any of us wanted. Caleb and Cass are getting divorced? Seriously? Why can't they let them be happy? I understand that the actress doesn't necessarily want to be on the show anymore, or not often, but that's such a cop-out way to get us to stop asking where she is. Painting Cass as the villain is not a good idea. I'm so thankful Peter was there to give him advice from his past experiences and help Caleb see things a little more clearly. Katie reading her scary story to the kids in the tent was a pretty fun moment. Then Peter popping the champagne bottle at the climax of the story was pretty great. Michelle directed that scene and so many others beautifully. The imposter storyline was pretty interesting. I admire that she wants to work with horses and she wants to help them. I do find it pretty creepy how she had a collection of pictures of Amy and the one with her daughter in the barn. I'm glad they resolved the issue and the lady realized she took things a little too far. Lastly, the rodeo stuff. Mike's back, and of course, he'll do anything to sabotage the event. I honestly thought when the horse got spooked, it was going to be Tim getting hurt, not Jack. The writers seriously love to leave us on a cliffhanger when it comes to Jack's well being. I would like to say I love the episode, and normally these types of storylines and cliffhangers would really put it at the top. But I can't help but feel like what they did to Finn's character is not okay. It made me feel sick. That really put a damper on the episode for me. It just felt like an unnecessary plot device to get rid of him and to really say to us, there won't be any future between them. It just made me think of all those times we saw him before and the hope it gave so many fans to see Amy fall for someone again. Was that all for nothing? I just really can't believe they would do that to us, especially since the passing of Robert. They had plenty of time to change the narrative of that story. I'm deeply disappointed with the writers on this one. Also, to add, it was nice to see Peter again. I do wish we had more scenes between him and Katie, but it was entertaining watching him babysit Lindy and Carson. I agree with basically everything with this, but I just had to say that, obviously the production is going to use the pictures they had available, the still photography and the behind the scenes pictures. But it always seems a bit funny to me when some characters have pictures for moments where no one else was there for. So it especially felt extremely creepy that Jolene would have some of these pictures because some of those moments no one was there for except for Amy and maybe a horse or some other character who belongs to the family. So it would be kind of like, where would she get those? But yeah. Usually it's just funny, but in this episode it was creepy. Then one last comment from Nina. So let me get this straight. We're going to undo all the progress Amy has made these past seasons, make it so she feels like she can't ever trust herself again, make Jack the savior in all of this, and tarnish the character played by a dead man. Cool. Heartland writers, real nice. I'm frankly disgusted. It's poor writing, and for what? Some added drama? Also, leaving behind poor Peter when he planned a lovely surprise for Lou. How was he so okay with it? For the trauma? Caleb and Cass are getting divorced? The trauma? Honestly, the only part of this episode I enjoyed was Jack's accident because it was so well filmed and tense. But frankly, this whole episode felt like a mess, and I'm just praying they fix this mess with Finn, even though I know they won't. God, they really dug below the bar with this one. They sort of took things that could happen and put them in the episode for the sake of drama instead of developing these characters further into something more mature, more interesting and layered. But again, we still haven't seen episode 11, so it feels like things could still change in some parts. So we'll just have to wait for that to fully know what's gonna happen and what's gonna happen the rest of the season. But yeah, that's all I have for you this week. Because this was the mid-season finale, we won't be recapping the episode next week. We'll have a themed episode, and I will have a guest joining me. And I don't even have the synopsis for episode 11 yet. So we'll just have to wait a little longer before we actually talk about that episode. And that episode will premiere January 8th. So there will be a few weeks before we get there. But I'll promise to keep you entertained throughout this little hiatus between these episodes. And till next episode, keep your noses clean and your powder dry, as they say. See you next week. Bye.